Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a really fascinating look under the hood of modern news production.
We are. We're diving into the world of visual journalism, and we're doing it through the eyes of someone who is, at the very top of the field, Marco Hernandez.
He's the graphics editor of the New York Times, and the material we're working from today is pretty special, isn't it?
It really is. This isn't just one interview. It's from a special international dialogue that was hosted by newspaperdesign.org.
So we're getting curated answers to questions from dozens of visual journalists from all over the world.
Exactly. It's like the distilled wisdom of the field right now.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty laser-focused. We need to analyze how AI is changing the actual mechanics of the newsroom, the how of the work.
But at the same time, we have to define what he calls the big, thick red line. That's where the human role, the storytelling, the ethics has to remain totally in charge.
I love that phrase, big, thick red line. And his whole philosophy really sets the stage, doesn't it? He says a graphic has to grab your attention in this crazy age of scrolling.
Right. But, and this is the key part, it also has to be truthful, human, and meaningful. He says that impact without meaning is basically just decoration.
That is the perfect line to anchor this whole discussion. So let's start with the first theme, which I have to say is a huge relief for anyone who's ever, fought with a bad data set.
Oh, for sure.
It's this idea of AI as an agent for work optimization. He sees it as a massive time saver, not a threat.
He uses this brilliant term for it. He says it's about taking on the monkey tasking.
Monkey tasking, that's perfect.
It is, isn't it? It's all that repetitive, mind-numbing stuff that just eats up your creative energy before you even get to the fun part.
And he gets really specific about what that means.
Yeah.
We're talking about things like processing huge batches of data.
Or looking for patterns that might take a human hours to spot.
Right, and cleaning up messy data, formatting it. And this one surprised me a little, even helping with code editing.
Yeah, that coding assistance is a game changer. I mean, visual journalists these days are often expected to be part-time developers.
Mm-hmm.
Having an AI that can help you write the code you need for an interactive piece just speeds up that whole pipeline enormously.
He shared this one anecdote that just made it all click for me. Imagine you have a ton of great data, but it's trapped, inside a bunch of images or messy PDFs.
Right. And what you need before you can do anything is to get it all into one clean CSV file. For anyone listening who doesn't live in spreadsheets, a CSV is just a super simple, clean data format.
And getting it into that format used to be a complete misery job.
Oh, absolutely. Hernandez said the old way was you either had to go find a developer to write a script for you, or you sat there doing it by hand with and I quote, a crate of coffee.
We've all been there, just battling the source material to get to the starting line. But here's where the AI comes in.
This is the magic part.
He says now, an AI agent like GitHub Copilot doesn't replace him, but it guides him. It helps him create the Python script to do that conversion in like a few minutes.
It just evaporates that bottleneck. All that time is suddenly liberated, so the designer can actually focus on the story, on the nuance, and on building something really ambitious.
Instead of just cleaning up a mess. But wait, if the AI is that good at the technical stuff, like coding and data wrangling, does that mean designers should focus more on, mastering AI prompts instead of visual fundamentals?
And that is the perfect question, because that pushes us right up against that critical counterpoint he makes.
The big, thick red line.
The big, thick red line. Just because the AI can do something fast doesn't mean you can blindly trust it or, outsource your journalistic duty.
That makes sense. I mean, human supervision is non-negotiable. He even says, back when you were doing it manually with that creative coffee, you still had to double-check your own work.
Exactly. The tool changes, the responsibility doesn't, and you probably need even more critical oversight with AI, not less.
His concern for the craft itself is what really stands out here.
Yeah, he sees AI as just another tool like Photoshop or, QGIS for maps. But he sees the danger. He said he worries about a creator who has a degree in AI prompting and zero knowledge of basic principles of visual storytelling.
Wow. That quote just powerfully sums up the whole risk, doesn't it? If you let the tool drive the project, you lose control of the story.
You lose the meaning. The job isn't to be a prompt engineer. It's to be a clear communicator and a critical thinker. The machine does the heavy lifting, but the human has to do the thinking.
So that brings us back to the real goal here, successful storytelling. And this gets into that age-old debate in design, right? Simplicity versus impact.
Right, and he's careful with the word simplify because sometimes the detail is the story. But he insists you have to find the intention of the piece
The
first.
core message it has to deliver.
Exactly,
Right.
because that intention is what lets you build the hierarchy of information. A huge part of the designer's job is really just editing, deciding what's crucial, what's just context, and what's noise that you need to cut.
And he has this core rule that I think should be, like, etched into the wall of every newsroom.
Let me guess. The comprehension is above the impact.
That's the one. He says an impactful visual with no deep meaning is weak, unless you're just decorating a story. The style has to serve the message.
And he has a great follow-up to that. He says if a piece is visually stunning but the message is muddy, it will lose appeal. The more you read it, the uglier it gets.
That's so true. So clarity is the foundation. But let's be realistic for a second. We're living in this world of constant, relentless scrolling.
Total overstimulation.
Exactly. People give you maybe a second or two. So how does a graphic actually cut through all that noise? What's the silver bullet for getting attention?
He says you have a tiny window right at the top of the page. You can't ease the reader in. You have to hit them with what he calls small bites.
Small bites. I like that. So for short video, for instance.
The rule is simple. The reader has to know what it's about and why they should care within seconds.
And for a big, long read investigation.
You have to front-load the value, give them a summary, a really punchy headline, and the most important takeaway in one sentence, right next to a powerful visual. That's the hook.
Okay, so that's the tactic. But what makes a story truly memorable? The thing that makes you share it and think about it days later.
He boils it down to three key things.
Okay, what's the first?
The first is the wow effect. This is when a piece shows you something totally unexpected or counterintuitive. It's that moment that just makes you go, whoa.
Right, the genuine surprise. Okay, what's number two?
Number two is attention to details. This is all about exquisite craftsmanship. Even if the idea isn't revolutionary, the execution is just flawless. The colors, the labels, everything is just perfect.
It makes it a pleasure to explore. And the third one?
The third one is what he calls the crucial factor. It's relevance. Relevance in the news to me.
Ah, so it has to connect to the reader's actual life.
Precisely. You can have the biggest wow story in the world, but if the reader can't see how it affects their city, their wallet, their community, it just won't stick.
So the ultimate silver bullet recipe is that combination.
Mhm.
Wow effect, attention to detail, and relevance.
That's it. You have to find that sweet spot to make the experience feel personal.
Okay, let's shift from the ideal story to the messy reality. Hernandez is really honest about how hard it is to work with inconsistent public data. He calls it a big problem indeed.
And this is a huge test of journalistic integrity, right? He's very clear that you can't just fill in the gaps in the data to make your chart look pretty.
So transparency is everything. If the data is partial, you have to state that clearly on the graphic.
Yes. Based on partial data reported by X public source, you have to be upfront about it.
But they don't just stop there, do they? They have strategies if data is missing.
Right. They do two things. First, they might bring in outside experts, not designers, but, economists or scientists, to offer projections or annotations on what that missing data might mean.
So they can signal a likely trend without actually faking the data.
Exactly. And the second strategy is just to reduce the scope. If the data for the whole country is messy, maybe you just focus on one state where the data is solid. You make a smaller but more precise point.
That makes a lot of sense. So moving from data challenges to audience challenges. He also talked about designing for international audiences, places where they use languages like Japanese or Arabic.
Yeah, and this is where he says your own cultural biases can lead to foolish mistakes. You absolutely cannot just guess.
So what's the solution?
The only way to do it right is to work very closely with a native speaker of that language, someone who gets all the cultural nuances.
Because it's not just about translating the words correctly.
Not at all. It's about what colors mean, whether people read right to left, what empty space implies. Things that Google Translate or ChatGPT will get completely wrong. You need that human expertise baked in from the very beginning.
So finally, what about the future? Where does he see things going?
He still sees a lot of value in print, but not as the main delivery system. He calls it a great editing exercise.
Because the limited space forces you to be incredibly clear and efficient.
Exactly. And while he sees video as a promising horizon, he also gives a really smart warning about complex interactivity.
You mean all those sliders and buttons and filters?
Yeah. He says that stuff often forces extra work from the average reader and they just give up. Innovation should be about clarity, not just adding more complex features.
Yeah, I've definitely abandoned a page because I couldn't figure out all the buttons.
We all have.
So if we pull all of this together, we end up with this really beautiful duality, don't we?
We really do. On one hand, you have AI as this indispensable assistant for all that monkey tasking.
But that convenience has to stop cold at the big, thick red line. The machine handles the mechanics, but the human storyteller is in charge of the intention, the ethics, the clarity.
And ultimately, the relevance to the reader. The core task just doesn't change. Comprehension over impact, and always striving for that mix of wow, detail, and relevance.
And for any visual journalists listening today, his advice for staying relevant is so key. It's not about mastering one piece of software.
No, because the software is always changing. It's about relentless curiosity, constant experimenting, and understanding the basics of multiple disciplines.
That's the real takeaway for you, the learner, who's always trying to gain that applicable knowledge. Hernandez says the only way to stay relevant in this chaotic landscape is to be curious all the time. So given how fast AI tools evolve and then become obsolete, maybe the real question is this.
How might focusing on those foundational skills and that perpetual curiosity, rather than dedicating years to mastering a specific prompt language, be the true differentiator for successful visual communicators moving forward?
A question that really shifts where we should all be putting our energy. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We hope you feel significantly more well-informed.
Until next time.